Min-kyu is the richest chaebol in Korea, but he suffers from a strange illness. Whenever he makes physical contact with another person, severe rashes start appearing on his body, followed by shortness of breath. In extreme cases, he might faint or even die. Min-kyu's biggest wish is to have a girlfriend. Every time he sees a kissing scene in a movie, he can't help but hug a pillow and fantasize. However, due to his illness, he can't get close to any woman and has to live in seclusion. His private doctor, Dr. Oh, is the only one he can confide in. Over the years, they've tried various treatments, but none works. Dr. Oh advises Min-kyu to accept his lonely life and gives him a smart watch that can monitor his allergic reactions through color. Blue indicates normal, yellow means a slight reaction, orange means full-body rashes and closed airways, and red indicates he will die in a few minutes, a severity he's never experienced before. Min-kyu feels the watch is pointless, because no matter what, he'll live out the rest of his life like a monster. Until one day, a genius scientist named Professor Hong contacts Min-kyu. He reveals that he and his team have successfully developed an intelligent robot. She can read human facial expressions and communicate emotionally with them, and she won't cause Min-kyu any harm. Min-kyu thinks this is a scam, but out of curiosity, he visits Professor Hong's Santa Maria lab. As soon as he enters, a beautiful woman with long hair greets him warmly. She introduces herself as Aji-3, the most advanced artificial intelligence robot created by Professor Hong. Min-kyu sneers and questions her why she is pretending to be a robot. To dispel his doubts, Aji-3 immediately removes her clothes, revealing her mechanical body. Min-kyu can't believe his eyes. He instinctively reaches out to touch her, only to be shocked that he has no allergic reaction. Excited by this new invention, he immediately expresses his desire to purchase Aji-3 and even invests 1 billion Korean won into the project. But on one condition, he's going to test the robot tomorrow. Unfortunately, that night, a disaster strikes at the lab. A researcher accidentally spills a drop of beer onto Aji-3's core processor, causing a short circuit. The worst part is, it will take at least 2 days to repair the robot. The entire team falls into despair. If they don't deliver Aji-3 to Min-kyu by tomorrow, the deal will be cancelled. In desperation, Professor Hong decides to seek help from his ex-girlfriend, Ji-ah. She is the prototype for Aji-3. They reunite after a long time, and the atmosphere is awkward. Professor Hong doesn't waste time with pleasantries and directly proposes a deal. If she agrees to pretend to be Aji-3 for 3 hours, he will pay her 10 million Korean won. Ji-ah doesn't want to have anything to do with her ex, but since she urgently needs money, she reluctantly accepts the job. Hong takes Ji-ah to the lab and shows her the robot. Then, the researchers work together to train Ji-ah to behave and speak like the robot. They dress her in special armor, style her like Aji-3, and even put on contact lenses. These lenses are actually sub-miniature cameras. What Ji-ah sees and hears will be transmitted to Aji-3 and the researchers in real time. They can also remotely issue commands and communicate with her through subtitles or images on the screen. The next day, Ji-ah is delivered to Min-kyu's house as planned. But when he opens the box, she suddenly jumps out in shock. It turns out the two of them had an unpleasant encounter just a few days earlier. Min-kyu had hired Ji-ah to buy a limited edition figure for him, but when he saw dirt on the box, he refused to pay and drove away. Ji-ah tricked him into stepping out of the car and then demanded the rest of the money. That unexpected contact triggered a severe allergic reaction in Min-kyu. Luckily, Ji-ah was wearing a helmet that day, so her face wasn't fully exposed. Now, Min-kyu is confused by the robot swearing at him. He immediately calls Professor Hong to ask what's going on. The researchers quickly make up a story. Aji-3 has 2 modes, Operation Mode and Friend Mode. In Operation Mode, she acts professional. In Friend Mode, she behaves more like a human. Right now, the robot is in Friend Mode, but can be switched to Operation Mode by pressing the reset button. The naive Min-kyu believes it and presses the button. Ji-ah restarts and begins repeating Aji-3's programmed commands. Seeing her back to normal, Min-kyu decides to give her an intelligence test. Just then, the lab's power goes out, cutting off Jia's connection to the robot system. Now she has to rely only on herself, but her IQ is just 94. First, Min-kyu asks her to open a box. The only way to get the password is by solving complicated calculus within 3 minutes. Jia knows nothing about calculus, so she simply smashes the box open with her hands. This stuns Min-kyu. Next, he asks her to peel an egg in 10 seconds without tools. Thanks to her restaurant experience, she does it with ease. Min-kyu is amazed, praising the robot as smart and creative. Jia feels a little sad. She never expects the first person to call her smart would be this lunatic. Meanwhile, the lab's power comes back. When the researchers reconnect to Jia's camera, they are shocked to see her yelling at Min-kyu, calling him a pervert. It turns out Min-kyu had just noticed her breasts looks bigger than yesterday. He thinks the battery is swelling and wants to check. Professor Hong collapses in despair, thinking Jia has been caught. But in reality, Min-kyu only blames them for using cheap batteries that cause swelling. Hong quickly explains he upgraded AG3's battery to extend operating time. He also warns Min-kyu not to touch her breasts again. Once more, Min-kyu believes it. Being insulted by a robot even makes him feel refreshed, almost euphoric. But when he takes his medicine, a pill suddenly gets stuck in his throat. He falls to the floor, barely able to breathe. Without hesitation, Jia rushes to him and helps him spit it out. In that moment, Min-kyu feels warmth and care for the first time in years. Still, he wonders why Jia helps him without any command. She answers that she read his expression and judged he needed urgent medical help. After this, the two share their first physical contact. Strangely, this time Min-kyu shows no allergic reaction at all. At night, Jia is taken back to the lab. Professor Hong scolds her for being brainless and almost exposing herself. Jia gets angry because her ex-boyfriend is still as arrogant as ever. In the end, they part ways on bad terms. Soon, Hong receives terrible news. The special parts they ordered are sent to Africa by mistake. Now fixing AG3 takes at least a week. To make things worse, Min-kyu calls at that very moment. Ever since Jia left, he keeps imagining warm moments with her. So he decides to train her himself for a whole month. Hong replies it's impossible, since they have to move, and the robot can only be charged in the lab due to voltage limits. Meanwhile, Jia argues fiercely with her brother Jinbei. He accuses her of wasting time on useless inventions. Angry and hurt, Jia runs away from home, only to realize she has nowhere to go. Just as she feels helpless, a researcher texts her, begging her to act as the robot for a few more days. In the end, Jia agrees to keep working for Professor Hong. To ensure the test goes smoothly, the whole lab moves into Min-kyu's mansion. But on her very first day, Jia suddenly has diarrhea. She tries to hold it in but ends up farting. Min-kyu hears it and asks what that sound is. Jia quickly replies, "Master, you farted." Soon, the smell fills the house, and she suggests he change his underwear. Min-kyu, though doubtful, believes her. The moment he leaves, Jia rushes to the bathroom to relieve herself. However, Min-kyu soon returns and finds the robot missing. Suddenly, strange sounds come from the bathroom. He cautiously pushes the door open, only to find Jia spraying his expensive French perfume into the toilet. She pretends to clean, but Min-kyu doesn't buy it because robots can't touch water. Jia lies, saying she is a state-of-the-art robot that even can wash the dishes. Just as Min-kyu turns to leave, he notices sweat all over her face. When he steps closer to check, he slips on soap. Jia dives forward, clutching the precious perfume tightly. Min-kyu is shocked. The heavy metal crushes him, leaving him breathless. To make up for it, Jia offers him a massage. Later, Min-kyu starts thinking about how to teach AG3 to save him in emergencies. He wears a cat mask to test if she can recognize him. Jia finds him childish, but plays along, pretending not to recognize him. Min-kyu laughs at her cute reaction. He then says, "If I change into someone you can't recognize, Follow the emergency guide in the drawer and give me the injection. Jia looks confused, not understanding what he means. One day, while cleaning, Jia accidentally destroys a card castle that Min-kyu has built for 15 years. He screams in despair, but before he can say more, Jia pretends her battery is down to 5% and switches to standby mode. Furious, Min-kyu complains to Professor Hong that the robot doesn't understand him and keeps causing trouble. Hong tells him that he needs to input emotions with the data to develop a relationship where he can share emotions with Aji 3. Otherwise, their relationship will be like that of a smart secretary and her boss. Min-kyu finds his words convincing. Later that night, he searches online for how to bond with a pet. Slowly, he begins to understand and accept the robot's clumsy actions. For the first time, he notices the sun shines so brightly through that window, brightening his once dark life. Just then, a guest suddenly arrives. Jia walks into the yard holding coffee, only to see her brother sitting opposite her. It turns out that Jinbei is Min-kyu's secretary. To avoid being spotted by her brother, Jia places the coffee down with her back to him. However, her Sadako-like appearance totally scares them both. Soon after, a gorgeous lady named Riel returns from overseas. Eager to surprise Min-kyu, she heads straight to his place. Sure enough, Min-kyu's eyes light up when he sees her. Jia curiously asks, "Is someone here?" Min-kyu smiles and replies, "My first love." He asks Jia to stay inside and hurriedly goes to greet Riel. Riel briefly exchanges pleasantries with him, then mentions that her dad suggested they get married, and she agreed. But when she touches his shoulder, his excitement quickly turns to fear. Min-kyu turns his head, trying to hide the spreading rash. He then pretends to have an important appointment and rushes back into the house. However, he's too weak to retrieve the syringe from the drawer. When Jia finds him, Min-kyu is already on the floor, struggling to breathe. At that moment, the scene flashes back to Min-kyu's childhood. Back then, he hadn't yet developed his severe allergy. Little Min-kyu's parents cheered him on as he tried to build his first house of cards. When he failed, his dad used a magical card trick to chase away his frustration. In another memory, friends gather for Min-kyu's birthday party. On the way home, the whole family plays a word game together. Suddenly, a birthday balloon blocked Dad's view. Their car is struck by an oncoming truck. Only Min-kyu survives the crash. Afterward, his dad's friends visit him, wanting to become his legal guardians. Their main motivation was to inherit his parents' money. However, Min-kyu unexpectedly found a note in his pocket from Madam X. It said, "Don't sign anything and don't answer any questions." Later, a friend named Yu Cheol came to him, handing him an adoption document. Yu Cheol mentioned that his dad sent him and he looked forward to living with Min-kyu. Min-kyu stayed quiet and just signed the documents. Suddenly, he was horrified to see Yu Cheol's hand turn into a creepy claw and strange blisters form where it touched him. Afterward, Yu Cheol handed the adoption document to his dad, saying the job was done. But when his dad checked, he saw Min-kyu had written a curse word on the signature line. As a result, he had a feeling that this child preferred to be alone. That night, little Min-kyu returned to his empty mansion. From that day on, he no longer trusted anyone, which led to his allergy. By the time he grew up, only his private doctor knew about his condition. Back in the present, Min-kyu suddenly wakes up to find Jia beside him. He tells her he had a dream about evil people sticking knives in his back. However, he's surprised to see that his body is normal again. He pinches Jia's cheek, thanking her for saving him. But Jia feels a bit guilty because, in the panic, she injected him on his thigh, arm, and the top of his foot. As their relationship deepens, Jia and Min-kyu spend more and more time together, growing increasingly close. Min-kyu begins to open up to her, sharing stories from his lonely childhood. One day, Jia looks at the dazzling meteor shower on TV and can't help but marvel. Min-kyu promises to take her to that place when the meteor shower happens this winter. Jia feels a little sad because it will be Aji 3 with him that day, not her. What hurts her more is that Min-kyu plans to propose to her first love. He gives Riel his mom's keepsake, but she doesn't understand if he's proposing or rejecting her. Min-kyu doesn't know how to answer because he's unsure if Riel can accept his illness. Riel thinks his silence means rejection, so she suggests shaking hands as friends and saying goodbye. Min-kyu reluctantly takes her hand, triggering an allergic reaction. Soon, he starts having difficulty breathing. As he grabs the syringe, he hesitates whether to use it because he's tired of this miserable life. Even though the monitor starts beeping faster, he still puts down the syringe. Ji-ah intervenes just in time, bringing him back to his senses. She opens her magically color-changing umbrella and quietly stays by his side. Min-kyu's rash gradually fades, and his monitor returns to normal. This time, even without using the syringe, he fully recovers. Soon after, they decide to head back to their place. As they turn a corner, a gardener accidentally bumps into Min-kyu. He anxiously checks if he's okay. But to Min-kyu's surprise, no allergic reaction occurs. Seeing this, he tries to join the crowd to test himself, something he hasn't done in 15 years. Afterward, even when strangers have physical contact with him, nothing happens. With tears in his eyes, Min-kyu says, "I'm cured." He can't wait to share the good news with Dr. O. Suddenly, a passerby bumps into him, causing his monitor to beep again. Remarkably, when Min-kyu sees Ji-ah, his allergic symptoms begin to fade. However, when a couple blocks his view, his symptoms return. Dr. O asks if anyone is nearby, and Min-kyu admits, "Someone is here. As long as she's by my side, I won't get any rashes." But then he smiles wryly and says, "She's not human." After hanging up, Min-kyu hugs Ji-ah and tells her, "Be with me until I die." He promises to buy her the longest-lasting battery in the world because she's now his most precious treasure. Amid cheers, he kisses her forehead. At that moment, Professor Hong arrives based on the location tracking. He angrily beats up the pervert and tries to pull Ji-ah away. However, Min-kyu tightly holds onto her hand, refusing to let her go. Ji-ah has to pretend she's out of power and enters standby mode. Back home, Min-kyu once again tells Dr. O that even though he bumped into all those people, he was completely fine. He then proves it via video call. Dr. O is shocked because, for the first time in 15 years, Min-kyu doesn't need medication after human contact. He credits it all to the robot and calls it a miracle. He asks Min-kyu to record every moment of change since the robot entered his house, so they can figure out how he was healed. However, out of jealousy, Professor Hong no longer lets Ji-ah play AG3. He also terminates his cooperation with Min-kyu and decides to find new investors. In his lonely days, Min-kyu often imagines Ji-ah's figure, so he decides to buy the rights to the robot. He tries to offer 50 billion won to bribe the Santa Maria team's researchers, only to be ruthlessly rejected. After careful consideration, Min-kyu makes a bold decision. He visits Professor Hong again and takes the initiative to shake his hand. Soon, the rash rapidly spreads across his body. The scene before Professor Hong leaves him speechless with shock. Only then does he realize that the robot he created saved Min-kyu's life. Out of humanitarianism, Hong agrees to let AG3 continue helping Min-kyu. Before doing so, he first asks Ji-ah for her opinion. Ji-ah agrees without hesitation because she still cares about Min-kyu. Eventually, Hong and Min-kyu sign a contract, but with a condition. Min-kyu must never touch AG3. Despite this, Min-kyu is still overjoyed. He personally picks up and drops off AG3 every day and even sets up a special room just for her. Watching Ji-ah put on the new clothes he prepared for her, Min-kyu feels his heart race. He can't help but say, "I want to kiss." Ji-ah is shocked, and Min-kyu quickly adds, "It's with Riel." To help him fulfill his wish, Ji-ah calls her good friend Sun-hai, a famous kissing goddess. After explaining the theory, she guides Min-kyu and Ji-ah through practical exercises. Gradually, a romantic atmosphere fills the air. Suddenly, Sun-hai deliberately creates an intimate moment. To ease the awkwardness, Min-kyu quickly pushes Ji-ah away. Sun-hai reminds him to remember that feeling, because that was the perfect moment for a kiss. That night, Min-kyu goes on his first date with Riel. Watching them so sweet together, Jia feels heartbroken. However, Riel seems to be constantly brushing off Min-kyu, even making an excuse to leave abruptly. Just then, it starts pouring rain. Disheartened, Min-kyu holds an umbrella and walks up to Jia. He marvels at how brilliant the inventor of the umbrella must be. When he uses this umbrella to look up at the rain, he feels all his frustrations melt away. Jia is deeply moved. The inventor of the umbrella is her, and Min-kyu is the first person to sincerely praise it. Suddenly, a passerby accidentally bumps into Jia. In that intimate moment, Jia impulsively kisses Min-kyu. Back home, Min-kyu's heart is in turmoil. His first kiss was taken by a robot. After calming down, he guesses that Aji-3 must be making significant progress in her learning, which triggered her emotional reactions. But soon, he feels really frustrated, because Aji-3 can be his closest friend, but can't be the woman he loves. He warns her that she must never repeat what she did yesterday. Jia gets angry and pretends to forget what happened. Min-kyu takes out the umbrella, trying to jog her memory. Jia only responds with, "I don't understand what you're talking about." Min-kyu feels like he's gone crazy, developing unusual feelings for a robot. So he decides to deliberately keep his distance from her and even drowns himself in alcohol to escape it all. Jia also feels sad, but she can only confess to him that she's not a robot while he's asleep. The next day, Min-kyu takes Jia to buy a proper outfit and brings her to a high-end restaurant. However, she sits alone at a separate table. Then Min-kyu warmly greets Riel and her dad. They are there to discuss the engagement. Min-kyu accidentally learns that the birthday cards he receives every year are not from Riel. He's disappointed, and then he realizes Riel has never liked him. Jia feels equally disheartened. When Min-kyu comes to pick her up, she ignores his hand and leaves on her own. Sometime later, Aji-3 is finally fixed. But the bad news is, the system isn't stable. Professor Hong says Aji-3 will need 4 more days to finish deep learning with Jia's data. After that, Jia won't need to pretend to be a robot. Jia, who has already started adapting to her new life, feels sad about this news. She can only cherish the remaining time with Min-kyu. Then, one day, everything changes. Min-kyu goes to a gas station alone. Without Jia by his side, he avoids contact with others. However, he accidentally touches the staff member's hand while distracted. Minutes later, he remembers suddenly it and checks his body. To his surprise, he seems completely cured. Upon hearing this good news, Dr. O is speechless with excitement. Min-kyu hugs him and thanks him for his hard work over the past 15 years. After calming down, Dr. O asks if anything has happened to make him happy. Min-kyu replies that he called out to someone with his heart. Dr. O thinks he means Riel and marvels at how Aji-3 has done something great. He suggests that Min-kyu can now send Aji-3 away. However, Min-kyu just can't bear to leave her. Dr. O explains that Min-kyu developed feelings for the robot because she was his first friend in 15 years. But now that he's fully healed, he can find more happiness in human connections. Min-kyu argues that Aji-3 makes him very happy. Dr. O calls it an illusion and hopes Min-kyu can touch and embrace the person he truly loves. That night, feeling depressed, Min-kyu meets up with Professor Hong and confesses that he has fallen in love with Aji-3. Hong explains this isn't love, but an attachment. It's because Aji-3 was Min-kyu's first friend, and she cured him. Min-kyu argues only when he's with Aji-3 does he feel truly alive. Hong reminds him Aji-3 is just a pre-programmed robot and urges him to stay clear-headed. Hearing this, Min-kyu admits he's going crazy. He tearfully asks Hong what he should do. The next day, Professor Hong visits Min-kyu and tells him that there is a way. He suggests resetting Aji-3 so she will forget everything and Min-kyu can move on. Min-kyu is devastated, but he knows it's the only option. Later that day, Jia hears the news. Heartbroken, she dresses up as Aji-3 for the last time. In the final 3 hours, Min-kyu takes Jia out for a walk. He confesses that he has a disease that prevents him from having contact with humans. Then, they cross the street together like a couple and visit a bookstore. Back at the villa, Min-kyu acts as if nothing happened and says goodbye to Ji-ah. He thanks her for everything and cherishes the time they've spent together. Ji-ah struggles to hold back her tears, expressing her gratitude and apologies. She only wishes him happiness in the days ahead. Min-kyu gazes at her and announces that he is going to reset her. Ji-ah reminds him that all their memories will be permanently erased. Despite this, Min-kyu agrees to proceed and puts his mom's necklace on Ji-ah. After pressing the button, he inputs the last message, "I love you." Back at the lab, the real Aji-3 reports that Min-kyu's folder has been deleted. That night, Min-kyu and Ji-ah fall asleep crying in their respective homes. However, Ji-ah is sent to the hospital due to severe dehydration. At this moment, she is still wearing Min-kyu's necklace. Meanwhile, Min-kyu cleans up Aji-3's dedicated room, determined to start enjoying his new life. Yet, as the novelty wears off, all he feels is loneliness and emptiness. He lights the heart-shaped lamp again, and Ji-ah's figure appears before him. Just then, Professor Hong sends a message saying he's going to change Aji-3's face. Min-kyu rushes to stop him and admits he regrets resetting her. So he decides to do whatever he can to get the Aji-3 he trained back. Strangely, although the robot's appearance hasn't changed at all, Min-kyu feels unfamiliar with her. Soon after, Min-kyu accompanies Riel to try on wedding dresses. However, another man keeps appearing in Riel's mind. She realizes she has fallen for someone else. Riel then confesses to Min-kyu that she can't marry him. Instead of feeling upset, Min-kyu sincerely wishes her happiness. Elsewhere, Ji-ah decides to go back to her hometown to live with her grandma. One day, Min-kyu boards a train, where he encounters a familiar face. It's Ji-ah. However, even though they sit together, they don't speak a word. In the end, Ji-ah can only sadly watch Min-kyu leave. In truth, Min-kyu doesn't get off the train. He calls Professor Hong, asking how he designed Aji-3's face. Hong reveals that he hired a part-time worker as the model for her, and Aji-3 looks, acts, and behaves just like her. Min-kyu wonders if he might meet her someday. Hong replies that it's certainly possible, but advises Min-kyu to pretend not to recognize her to avoid disturbing her life. Despite this, Min-kyu follows Ji-ah to her grandma's restaurant and asks to talk with her. She makes up an excuse, saying she's too busy to spare any time. But Min-kyu is stubborn. He decides to wait until she finishes work. Meanwhile, Ji-ah hurries to the kitchen, removes the necklace from her neck, and hides it under a plate. Several hours pass, but Min-kyu doesn't leave. As a result, Ji-ah is forced to interact with him. She admits that 4 years ago, she took money from Professor Hong to become the model for the robot. But that's all. Min-kyu wants to ask more, but Ji-ah warns him to leave or she'll call the police. However, the quick-witted Min-kyu asks her grandma if she has a room. Grandma replies she has many and asks which one he wants. Ji-ah has no choice but to let him stay for the night. Later that night, Ji-ah prepares to go to the warehouse to get supplies. Worried, Grandma asks Min-kyu to accompany her, and he agrees without hesitation, though Ji-ah looks reluctant. The two sit in the car, both reminiscing about the past. Gradually, Ji-ah's attitude softens, and they chat until they reach the warehouse. But while they're getting the necessary items, someone accidentally locks the door. Unaware the two are still inside. The couple has no choice but to spend the night there. Late at night, Min-kyu can't help but tell her about his experience with Aji-3. Ji-ah quietly listens, her mind filled with mixed emotions, but she just pretends she knows nothing. She then opens up, sharing her own story. Since she was young, she admired how her dad could repair broken things and make them like new. She dreamed of becoming someone like him, but unfortunately, luck never seemed to favor her. For a long time, she felt worthless until one day, her invention was finally recognized by someone. In that moment, she felt her worth and decided not to give up. This late-night heart-to-heart quietly brings them closer. The next day, someone opens the warehouse door, finding the couple sleeping together. When they wake up, they return to the grandma's restaurant to help out. Min-kyu almost discovers the necklace hidden under the plate, but before he can, Ji-ah takes it away. The next day, Min-kyu returns to the restaurant, only to find Ji-ah has already left. He feels sad and searches for her, eventually finding her by the beach. When Ji-ah sees him, she immediately covers the necklace, but it's too late. That's when Min-kyu realizes that Ji-ah is Aji 3. For Min-kyu, healing means learning to trust others. But this time, he is betrayed by his closest friend once again. So his allergy flares up again, and he collapses in pain. Poor Ji-ah is terrified by the scene. Fortunately, Professor Hong arrives in time to inject Min-kyu with antibiotics. Min-kyu is urgently sent home and placed under intensive care. Ji-ah helplessly waits at the door, not knowing what to do. Soon after, Min-kyu's secretary visits Min-kyu. While they talk, Min-kyu orders him to sue the Santa Maria team and Ji-ah, accusing them of deceiving him. Jinbei warns that this could lead to his dismissal from the company, and his illness would be made public. However, Min-kyu does not change his mind. To everyone's surprise, Jinbei hands over his resignation letter. He confesses Ji-ah is actually his sister, and sincerely apologizes. He then heads to the Santa Maria lab and orders everyone to leave. Meanwhile, Ji-ah asks Dr. Oh what she can do to help Min-kyu recover. Dr. Oh answers that the solution lies within her, since she's the one who created the miracle. Ji-ah recalls that Min-kyu once said he couldn't even eat food that other people had touched. So, she puts on gloves and a mask to prepare clean food for him. However, Min-kyu throws them away without hesitation, reacting coldly. Despite this, Ji-ah doesn't give up and tells him she will visit him every day. One night, Min-kyu tosses and turns, unable to sleep. He goes to the garden and stands by the fire with the butler. Min-kyu asks if he has ever lied to him. The butler answers that no one in the world is without lies. He tells a story about hedgehogs. In cold weather, hedgehogs gather together for warmth, even though they prick each other, because it's better than enduring the cold alone. The next day, Ji-ah has a small accident on her way to Min-kyu's house. Hours pass, and she still hasn't arrived, causing Min-kyu to become anxious. By night, Ji-ah arrives, dragging her injured body. As usual, she prepares a hearty meal for him. Just as she is about to leave, Min-kyu stops her. He wants to know if everything she does is just to beg him to withdraw the lawsuit. Ji-ah denies it and admits she has a lot to say to him. However, Min-kyu accuses her of being despicable and disgusting, questioning if she feels happy for deceiving and tricking him. He angrily throws his glass, and even though the shards cut Ji-ah's hand, she quietly walks away and apologizes. The next day, Min-kyu notices that Ji-ah has left him some comic books. Just then, Ji-ah's friend arrives at Min-kyu's house and tells him that he will soon lose the most precious gift in his life. She reveals that the Santa Maria team is going to Australia with Ji-ah. Those sweet memories will soon be his alone, while Ji-ah will meet a man other than him. Hearing this, Min-kyu looks saddened, but he pretends not to be affected. In reality, he can't resist secretly visiting the Santa Maria team members. Suddenly, a researcher notices him and runs toward him, but Min-kyu ignores him and drives off. When he gets home, he turns on the TV and learns that 70 meteors are expected to fall in the next hour. However, he ignores it and puts the umbrella in the cupboard. Out of curiosity, he searches online for this special umbrella and discovers Ji-ah made it. Only then does Min-kyu realize that it was his praise that rekindled Ji-ah's hope. He looks around and sees traces of Ji-ah's love all over the room. Unable to resist, he lights up the heart-shaped lamp and heads to Mountain Hwangmae. Meanwhile, Ji-ah sees the glowing heart-shaped lamp and rushes there to meet him. Elsewhere, the robot Aji 3 is also heading to find Min-kyu because he promised to take her to see the meteor shower. Sun-hai explains that Min-kyu should be with someone else now. Actually, he is anxiously waiting for Ji-ah. Ji-ah arrives, and they begin to talk. Ji-ah tells Min-kyu that when they first met, she wasn't a robot but a human who helped him buy a limited edition figure. Hearing this, Min-kyu finally understands why she acted strangely back then. He feels foolish for not being able to distinguish between a human and a robot. He then asks her what other lies she's told. Jia replies that she hasn't lied, only stolen some food and alcohol. After that, Min-kyu asks what her impression of him was when they first met. Jia reveals that she thought he was a nasty jerk because he left without paying the balance. She also thought he was a crazy psycho for celebrating his robot vacuum's birthday and babbling about a rank for every staff. But after a certain point, she starts to feel sympathy for him and hopes he can be happy. She's willing to do anything she can for him. Min-kyu asks her to sit closer and asks if she has her heart ever fluttered because of him. Jia admits that every morning on her way to his house, her heart fluttered. When Min-kyu told her that she was his treasure and asked her to stay with him forever, it kind of felt like she was being proposed to. Then, she recalls the first time she saved him. She couldn't believe there was a guy who smiled like that. Min-kyu asks if she was scared back then. She admits she was, but she remembers. He once said that even if he changed, he hoped she would recognize him. At that moment, she realizes how desperately he meant those words. Jia also tells him that when he stroked her head, she felt happy and excited. She says she didn't like it at first, but after getting used to it, she would miss it if he didn't do it. She then brings up the time he was drunk, and she leaned in close to him and said she was not a robot. After hearing this, Min-kyu wants to gently stroke her head, but he can't. Jia notices it and grabs his hand to stroke her hat instead. She then apologizes for hiding the truth from him from the start. Min-kyu gets closer and wants to kiss her, but stops himself. He lets go of her hand and thanks her for creating so many beautiful memories. These are enough for him to get through the rest of his life. Jia doesn't understand what he means. Min-kyu explains that he should go back to where he belongs because he won't be able to touch anyone again. He tells her that this is the end for them, then leaves without hesitation. Jia stops him, saying that he is the one she has been waiting for. She admits she needs him desperately and expresses her love for him. Hearing this, Min-kyu walks over and kisses her. Indeed, love creates miracles. The next morning, Min-kyu goes to buy coffee. He accidentally touches the waitress and triggers his allergy. But when he sees Jia in the car, he returns to normal. He then reluctantly drops Jia off at home, hoping to see her again soon. When he gets home, Min-kyu tells Dr. Oh about what happened today. Dr. Oh thinks that being fully recovered now doesn't mean much to him because the condition could disappear or come back at any time. Meanwhile, Chairman Huang finds out that the Santa Maria team deceived Min-kyu, so he decides to sell AG3 to a wealthy and powerful man named Martin. In the lab, the entire Santa Maria team feels saddened by her departure. What's worse, Martin plans to turn AG3 into a weapon of mass destruction. When Min-kyu hears this news, he rushes to the lab, but it's too late. Martin has already taken the robot away. Later that day, AG3 discovers from Martin's video that will become a military weapon. However, the Santa Maria team's video tells her she'll be living with humans as their friend and family. After comparing both, AG3 realizes Martin's video is wrong and deletes it. Min-kyu comes back home and the mini-robot welcomes him. In the kitchen, Jia and the Santa Maria team are busy. Professor Hong explains they want to share one last meal with him before they leave. Later, during dinner, they apologize to Min-kyu for the trouble they've caused him. They also reveal that the robot is called Beetle and is a gift for him to help pass the time. Min-kyu is deeply moved by this. He says it's too cold outside and asks them to stay the night. Just like that, they're back on good terms. Late at night, Min-kyu walks to the sofa where Jia is sleeping. He sits in front of her and gently kisses her hand. Just then, Jia wakes up and says he looks sad. Min-kyu replies that he feels guilty for the Santa Maria team losing AG3. She hugs him, comforts him, and assures him they will do their best to find AG3. Just then, Min-kyu receives an email requesting him to investigate the hit-and-run case of the former chairman. The sender is Madam X, who has secretly helped him since childhood. Instantly, Min-kyu comes up with a plan to bring back AG3. They then drive to a restaurant, where a woman sent by Madam X is waiting. She tells Min-kyu that Martin is the top criminal on the international police blacklist, involved in murder, fraud, and arson, among other crimes. However, due to insufficient evidence, he hasn't been held accountable. The only eyewitness is the former chairman's driver, Mr. Jang. He holds a key recording that can expose Martin's crimes. The next day, Min-kyu meets with Mr. Jang. He begs him to hand over the recording and promises that the international police will protect him. After hearing all this, Mr. Jang decides to trust them. Jinbai gets the recording and immediately hands it over to the police. Meanwhile, Jia drives Min-kyu to the company, where the AG3 deal is taking place. Fortunately, Min-kyu stops the signing ceremony just in time, and the police arrest Chairman Huang for the murder of the former chairman. Just as Martin's assistant opens the safe, he is shocked to discover that AG3 is missing. Elsewhere, AG3 is trying to find her way home, but she seems lost. When Min-kyu hears about AG3's disappearance, he immediately notifies the Santa Maria team. Meanwhile, Martin is furious because AG3 might reveal his secrets. It turns out that yesterday, Martin confessed that he got rid of the former chairman to get the robot. He orders his accomplices to find AG3, while he decides to flee Korea to avoid the police. At the same time, the lost AG3 is on a bench with a beggar. The beggar asks her to leave, but AG3 starts a conversation with him. Gradually, their relationship becomes amicable, and the beggar gives her a bus ticket to go home. Elsewhere, the Santa Maria team and Jinbai anxiously review through surveillance footage, while Min-kyu and Jia search the streets. After a while, Martin's men spot AG3 entering a store. She uses the computer to check the route to Min-kyu's house and then boards a bus. Soon after, Martin's men enter the store and learn of AG3's whereabouts. He immediately reports this to their boss. Not long after, AG3 gets off the bus and starts walking to Min-kyu's house. Suddenly a car stops, and two guys get out. They seem to like AG3 and offer to give her a ride. But just as they are about to leave, Martin's men stop them. Fortunately, the police arrive just in time and arrest the bad guys. Shortly afterward, Professor Hong arrives and takes AG3 back to the Santa Maria lab. The researchers are overjoyed to see her again. Afterward, Min-kyu takes Jia back to his place, and they both look relieved. After a brief conversation, Jia pushes Min-kyu away, preparing to leave. To get her to stay, Min-kyu says he's hungry and asks her to cook for him. Jia is amused by his cute behavior and agrees to prepare some gimbap for him. Min-kyu just can't stop himself and pulls her in for a kiss. Soon after, everyone celebrates the birthday of a researcher from the Santa Maria team. They also watch AG3's first public appearance and feel proud of how well she interacts with humans. Professor Hong then tells them it's time to change AG3's appearance. This time, everyone say goodbye to her properly. The next day, Professor Hong gives Min-kyu a USB drive containing a video revealing Martin's crimes, which he obtained from AG3's database. To prevent the bad guys from using his condition as a weapon, Min-kyu decides to take action. And Jia stays by his side supporting him. The following day, Min-kyu gathers the courage to attend a press conference, shocking everyone by admitting he suffers from a human allergy. He shares his real experience of being with robots, confessing that he is gradually recovering from it. He thanks his assistant, the Santa Maria team, and all the employees who helped him overcome his illness. Min-kyu also announces that he will invest heavily in developing robots with AI that can communicate with humans on an emotional level. With Professor Hong, a world-class roboticist, they will bring in the fourth industrial revolution and help more people. This explosive news spreads quickly, and even the company's stock price soars. Things are finally moving forward, and Min-kyu looks satisfied. He then calls Jia and arranges a romantic walk for the evening. However, just as he is about to leave, Jinbai suddenly appears behind him. He still seems determined to resign and asks Min-kyu to handle it. Min-kyu doesn't know how to stop him and watches him leave helplessly. Later that evening, Jia takes Min-kyu for a walk in the park. While having snacks, Min-kyu tells her about his brother's resignation. He wonders how to convince Jinbei to stay, but she doesn't have an answer either. Later, Min-kyu returns home and discusses the matter with the Santa Maria team. One researcher suggests Jin-bai might not like working under his sister's boyfriend. However, they don't find a good solution. Min-kyu walks back to his room, feeling frustrated. Meanwhile, Jia has dinner with her family. She seizes the opportunity to ask her brother about the reason behind his resignation. Her sister-in-law is furious when she hears the news and orders Jin-bei to retract his resignation letter. In reality, he still doesn't want to change his mind, but he can't go against his wife, so he reluctantly agrees. The next day, Jin-bei meets Min-kyu at a cafe to discuss the resignation letter. Min-kyu mistakenly thinks that Jin-bai insists on leaving the company, so he agrees to process it. After hearing this, Jia is suddenly getting a headache. She explains that her brother was planning to get the resignation letter back today, so she decides to invite Min-kyu over to her house. That evening, Min-kyu casually returns the resignation letter to Jin-bai and tells him, "I really need you." Hearing this, Jin-bei is moved and decides not to resign. 2 years later, Professor Hong holds a press conference to announce the creation of a brand new AI robot. Meanwhile, Jin-bei becomes the managing director of Min-kyu's billion-dollar company. His wife gives birth to a cute little daughter, and they are now a happy family of 4. Elsewhere, Jia's heart-shaped lamps attract high praise from international buyers, and she successfully signs a big contract. After the deal is done, Jia hurries to Min-kyu's house. On the same evening, a retired soldier gets off a taxi and walks toward Min-kyu's mansion. At the door, Jia warmly greets him. It turns out the soldier is Min-kyu. After a long reunion, they are both filled with joy and excitement. On the way back home, Jia almost slips, but Min-kyu tightly holds her. In this romantic atmosphere, they kiss passionately, as if time stands still at that moment.